Before writing the name or formula for any chemical, you have to figure out whether it's an ionic compound or molecular compound, because they follow different rules. To figure this out easily, look and see what type of element is first in the compound. If it is a metal or a polyatomic, then it's an ionic compound. If the first element is a nonmetal, then you know it's a molecular compound. When writing formulas for ionic compounds, you have to use the crisscross or the crossover method. There are 4 steps. First, find the charge on each piece of your formula by looking at the periodic table. Then take those charge numbers and cross them over into quantity numbers. If you're crossing a number over a polyatomic ion, you have to put the poly in brackets. And finally, look at your formula and reduce it into lowest terms if possible. Here are 2 examples. If I'm looking at the periodic table and find magnesium, it has a charge of 2 plus and sulfur has a charge of 2 minus. Now I have to crisscross my charges. The 2 on the magnesium gets crossed down and over, and so does the 2 on the sulfur. I just move the numbers, not the charges. So I have Mg2S2 as my formula. But notice that these can both be reduced into 1 by dividing them by 2. So my final formula is MgS. Here's an example with a polyatomic ion. If I look on the periodic table, calcium's got a 2 plus charge, and on the back side of the periodic table you'll find a polyatomic ion chart. OH, or hydroxide, has a 1 minus charge. Now, I crisscross my numbers. Since I'm crossing a number over top of a poly, it has to be put in brackets. Now looking at my formula, it's already in lowest terms, so my final answer is Ca bracket OH bracket 2. To write the name of an ionic compound, first give the metal its full name, and then if it is a nonmetal, give it its ion name. If the compound ends in a polyatomic, just name the poly. Don't change the last 3 letters to IDE. So for example, if I have ALP, then my name is going to be aluminum phosphide. But if I have AlPO4, my name's going to be aluminum phosphate. You must use a stock name for metals that can have more than 1 charge. This means that you put the charge of the metal in brackets in Roman numerals in the middle of the name. So if I've got the compound PbO, I first have to figure out, do I have a lead with a 2 plus charge or a 4 plus charge on it? In order to do that, check and see what it's with. Oxygen has a 2 minus charge on it, and since ionic compounds, their charges always have to add up to 0, lead in this case would have to be a 2 plus. So I give the metal its full name, put its charge in Roman numerals, and then I name the anion. So my name is lead 2 oxide. If you need some help reviewing Roman numerals, a capital I is equal to 1, a V is a 5, so IV, that's 1 number before 5, that's a 4, and VI, that's 1 number after 5, so that's equal to 6. To name a molecular compound, follow these steps. Give the first atom its full name, give the second atom its ion name, and use a prefix to indicate how many atoms you have. For example, SO2. S is a sulfur, and O is oxygen, so I change that to oxide. I have 1 sulfur, so I use the prefix mono. I have 2 oxygens, so I use the prefix di. So now I have monosulfur dioxide. Now, the mono is not required on the first atom. It's optional. But if you have 1 atom of the second element in a molecular compound, the mono is required. Here's another example, IBr5. I, that's an iodine, and Br, that's a bromine, so I'm going to change it to bromide. I have 1 iodine, so you can put a mono in front if you want. I have 5 bromines, so I use the prefix penta. So my name is iodine pentabromide. To write the formula of a molecular compound, first write the symbols for the elements in the name, and then use the prefixes to write your subscript numbers. In this compound here, I have the elements carbon and I have hydrogen, so I would write down C and H. Di-carbon means I have 2 of them, and hexa means I have 6 hydrogens.